In Skype for Business, you can communicate in several different ways: text conversations, video calls, audio calls. We'll be going through those different options as we work through this chapter. In this movie, we'll start with text conversations, also referred to as instant messages or IM. Starting a text conversation is easy. You want to start by going to the contact screen. If you remember, we saw in an earlier movie, this row of buttons is up here near the top of the window on the Windows version, but that row of buttons will be on the sidebar on the left on the Mac version. Either way, you want to click on the Contacts button to make sure you're on the Contacts page. From here, you can use the search field to search for a person, or you can use one of the people you already have stored in your contacts list. And from here, we can start the conversation using one of three different methods. The easiest way would be to simply double-click on somebody's name, and that will start a text conversation. That works on both Mac and Windows. Another option would be to right-click on somebody's name, and then choose the option Send an IM from this menu. That also works on both Mac and Windows. But if you use the Windows version, there's a third option available. If you simply point at somebody's icon on this list, you'll see these buttons will appear. And the first of those buttons is a button to send an IM, or a text message. But I'm going to stick with the easiest method, which I think most people will use. Just simply double-click on somebody's name, and that will start a text-based conversation. If you are using the Windows version, you'll notice that this opens up as a separate window. But on the Mac version, it will stay in one application window, but it will switch over to the Conversations view. We'll talk more about the Conversations view in just a moment. For now, I'm going to write a message. So I want to make sure my cursor is active in the text field down here at the bottom of the screen, and I can type my message. When I'm finished typing, I press return, and it sends that message. And I can see the message that I just typed here in the main part of this window. And I can always look up at the top left here. I can see the person I'm talking to, and I can see that there are two participants in this conversation. And in a moment, I'll get a response from the person I just sent a message to. And that's what the response looks like. And from here, we can continue typing messages back and forth, and that's pretty much it. But I want to see this from the other perspective. What happens when somebody sends a message to you? So I'll come back to this conversation later, but for now, I'm going to close this window. If you are using the Mac version, you're not going to close the window. Instead, you'll switch back over to the Contacts view, and you can look again at your list of contacts. Now I'm going to wait for a moment because somebody's going to send me a new message. And this is what that looks like. This is a notification for a new message. And if I point my mouse cursor at it, you'll see there is a button here where I can accept the message. If I do not want to accept this message, I could just hit the ignore button and the notification will go away. But I do want to see this message, so I'll hit accept. And it takes me to that conversation. Looks exactly the way I saw it on the other conversation. It's just got a different name up here at the top because I'm talking to a different person. So I'm going to type in my response. Hit return when I'm finished typing, and it sends that response. And again, I could just continue this conversation, but for now I'm going to close this window as well. Earlier in another chapter, we talked about how you can close the Skype for Business window, but still stay signed in. So I'm not going to sign out, but I am going to close this window. I'm just going to hit the X button up here near the top right corner. And if you are using the Mac version, you can close the window by hitting the red button in the top left corner. So if I close this window, I did not quit the application. And if somebody sends me a new message, I'll still see the notification. So here's that notification. I could ignore it, or I could hit accept. It opens up the conversation window, and I can continue talking. For now, I'm going to close this window again. So now I do want to go back to the regular Skype for Business window. And since the application is still running in the background, the way I'll get back to it is just to move my mouse cursor down here to the bottom of the screen. I'll go to the taskbar, this area in the bottom right corner. And you may see the Skype for Business icon here in the taskbar, or you may have to click on this button to open up the little submenu, and then you'll see it there. You can click on the Skype for Business icon there, then hit open, and it will take you back to the regular window. And of course, if you're using the Macintosh version, you'll just hit the Skype for Business icon in the dock. So now we can go back and continue working here in the regular Skype for Business window. And now I want to look at continuing a previous conversation. So I'm going to switch to the Conversations view. To do that, I'm going to click on this button here in the bar near the top of the window, and remember that button would be over on the sidebar on the left in the Mac version. And on the Mac version, that button will be labeled Chats instead of Conversations. So here you can see a list of previous conversations, and you can pick up where you left off. So if I double-click on this conversation I was having with Stuart, it opens that window again, and I can continue right where we left off. Now, I've typed in my response, but I do not want to send it yet because I want to take the opportunity to look at a few additional controls we have at the bottom of the conversation window. Now, when I type my message, usually I just hit return to send it. Now, you could also hit this little paper airplane button, and that will send the message as well. But before I send this, I want to hit this button here. This will mark the message as important. That's this little red exclamation mark. So I'm going to click that, and then I'll send the message either by hitting return or click the send button. And now that's been sent as an urgent message. Let's see what it looks like when somebody sends me an urgent message. And there it is. When somebody sends me an urgent message, I also see the little red exclamation mark on it. Again, looking at these buttons below the text field, there is a paperclip button which you can use to send a file attachment. So if you click on that, you can navigate through the files and folders on your computer and then send a file from there. For now, I'm just going to cancel that because I want to save file sharing for another movie. So we'll talk all about that in a separate movie. Just keep in mind that that is not available in Skype for Business on the Mac. You can only send file attachments here on Windows. And then there's an option for emojis, also known as emoticons. If you click on that, you get this menu of a bunch of emojis you could drop in. So I'm just going to type in a message. And before I send the message, I'll open up this menu. I'll choose an emoji. Then I'll hit the send button. It sends that message, and you can see the animated emoji is in that message. So that's the core of text conversations or instant messages in Skype for Business. Clearly, we did not talk about group conversations, and we barely scratched the surface on file sharing. We're going to save those larger topics for other movies in this course.